Ari Melber has been watching the hearing from just above the hearing, which must have given you an interesting vantage point on the protests, among other things, Ari.
That's certainly true, Brian. As you pointed out, we don't typically count those kind of protests. We see them in foreign policy and other hearings, not typically in these. And from our view here in the Senate Hart Office building, we saw several different protesters, as you mentioned, being removed, some being carried by their hands and feet by Capitol Police, that being a point of frustration, I think, for the senators. Big picture, I think what we saw here was the most contentious beginning to a Supreme Court nomination hearing in the modern era, not only because of those protests, but because of the fireworks that you've reported on that kicked off this hearing that was very unusual, those procedural efforts to try to draw a line, the Democrats saying the majority of the important material that they still need to get to vet this nominee has not been made available, and that they really want to delay or some other mechanism before they even go forward. Of course, there is a microcosm here, Brian, on the committee, as there will be expected in the Senate, which is if the Republicans stay united, they have the votes. They have a slim majority. And so what the Democrats, I think, are trying to do is to upend that by being untraditional, by drawing a line, by trying in some way to make this look and feel different, to sound an alarm for the American public. But ultimately, the question does remain the same. Does anything that happens when the questioning begins tomorrow, or any new information that might come from the documents that just arrived or that could come if those further documents are obtained, that actually changes the mind of some Republican senators. The other thing I think we saw that was expected once we got into opening statements, Brian, was several Democrats really hammering the criminal cloud that does hang over this presidency and this nominee's history on executive power. And I think we can expect him, the judge, to really explain that in his answers, because that's something that's not precluded by past rulings or things that he can't get into when he might say, well, on abortion or those issues, he could rule on them.
Ari Melber in our studio just above the hearing room. Ari, thanks.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.